Hello, Nick.
Very good evening, everybody. Warm welcome to Kaizen Central. I hope we've all had a wonderful week, and such a delight to see new folk coming in. Very good evening, everybody. Warm welcome to Kaizen Central. I hope we've all had a wonderful week, and such a delight to see new folk. Well, we all know what happened there. It's the usual thing. I forgot to mute the live stream, but there we go. I told you this was going to be an absolutely top-notch professional presentation tonight, and that is exactly, it can only go upwards from here. Anyway.
That was your digital twin, Nick. That was your digital twin.
My digital twin, very good. I like it. Before we get going, and just to allow other people to drift in from the foyer, just a little bit of news. Tomorrow, I'm going to be doing an interview for Manufacturing TV with James Emmett, who some of you may remember joined us from America last week. To describe some of the incredible training programs he has developed to help disabled people get into the manufacturing and other workplace. I'm really looking forward to that. So that's something that will go out on Monday. And then on Monday itself, I'm going to be interviewing Alison. Hi, Alison. And Richard Hagan. Because Richard, as I think some of you who remember in previous sessions, Richard has had enormous success in the Greater Manchester area with the virtual internship program that Alison developed at her company in Atlanta when the pandemic struck, and she found she had to scramble to actually service the needs of the young people who were due to join her at her company Wintech in Atlanta, just outside Atlanta, Georgia. And so rather than either cancel it or just have a couple of quick Zoom calls, she actually created a program that proved enormously effective and is now being used elsewhere in the United States. And certain members here are taking it on. Bob is one of them. Evening, Bob. It's going to be really interesting to see it develop. But Richard Hagan in particular is actually doing it. And so Richard and Alison and I will be having a chat about that on Monday. So I'm really excited to see that we're actually generating stories, if you like, from this great community we've been building. I hope everybody can see the notes. Can anybody see the notes I put in the chat right at the beginning, which is that please, during the course of this evening's session, when we're going to be talking about the new skills bill, Queen's Speech, etc., I'd like to gather some of the stuff, some of the gold that no doubt will be coming from this evening. So put it in the chat box. I'm able then to retrieve it later. So if you say something of particular brilliance, and I'm sure you all will, just put it in the chat box as we go. So I'd like to welcome Anthony Adams to the evening. Anthony, who here knows Anthony? Angela Lawler, who I'm sorry to say isn't with us this evening, but she introduced me to Anthony. Can you perhaps tell us just sort of 20-second elevator pitch about what you do, Anthony, so that people get a sense of it? And as I say, because of your expertise, I'd like you to perhaps lead us or at least steer some of the conversation talking about skills and education. Over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much. And thank you for the invitation. So I'm Anthony Adams. I'm the founder of an engagement platform called the Careers Calendar. My background, I've been in careers education for 11 years and guidance services. So formally I'm a qualified careers advisor. I've worked in the domestic markets, the international markets, both private and state schools as well. And in more recent years, because of the need for schools to be better at careers engagement, I founded a platform called the Careers Calendar, which you can find on the careerscalendar.com. So it just simplifies that process of engagement that needs to happen between the three core stakeholders, the student, the school driving that engagement, but the organization feeding into that student's world via their school. So that's me.
Well, thank you very much, Anthony. I'm going to start by throwing it back to you. We saw the white paper on further education earlier this year. I don't know if you had a chance to look at the Queen's speech or what's come out of it. The skills bill is going to be out next week. What are your thoughts on some of the what look like quite positive changes that the government's making to the skills, particularly the further education and lifelong learning landscape that we can hopefully look forward to going forward?
Great question. So I think the good news is that we're all looking in the same direction. We're all looking in the same way, and there's a lot of consensus, not just across the manufacturing sector, but also other sectors where similar problems exist. So there seems to be a strong alignment with what needs to be done. The obvious question is how this is going to be done. If we look back at some of the sort of changes to the provision of careers services, for me, I do have a bias. I'm a qualified careers advisor, although I don't formally work as a careers advisor. The real gap and opportunity, both for career professionals, but also for industry, is to address the careers advice and guidance gap. We're likely, both papers make no reference to professional impartial careers guidance. And that's an important point, because if you've got a school with a particular agenda that want to see their students go into particular destinations, then they might not get a fair and broad view of the scope of opportunity that's available to them, other than what's being presented to them within the four walls of the school. Often I get pulled into helping a school develop its careers engagement strategy. And yesterday I was with a school. I'm in the West Midlands, so one of the growth areas is engineering and manufacturing, and there was no reference to manufacturing on the school career strategy. So how can we ensure that it's even being thought of, in this case manufacturing, as an opportunity? And a lot of this lies on the young person not receiving that information via the medium of their schools. So I think that's an interesting gap, but also an opportunity. I think the idea and the concept of lifelong learning, it's been around for yonks, but the reality is how does a younger person, so let's say a 16 to 24-year-old, go about getting access to retraining, and how do they address that in keeping up to speed with their other life commitments? If you want to retrain, there has to be sacrifices on the other end. So it will be interesting to see how that evolves. Now, one of the interesting things with the tech sector is that there's a lot of accelerators popping up. Become a web developer in 24 weeks, fit it in around your own evening time. There might be a small fee, or in some cases it might be free. If you're in the combined authority in the West Midlands, then you can access the School of Code for free, and it just retrains you to become a software developer. And they've had huge success, and I think a lot of their successes sit in the fact that the content and the delivery is akin to how young people expect to receive content of any learning nature. Young people are spending so much time on social media, and yet when I see schools deliver presentations on careers of all sectors, the content's very dry, it's very drab, and nobody's really engaging. So I think that's also an opportunity, especially with this group, because I do know that, you know, Nick and a few others from the other group that I'm part of are very forward thinking and asking the right questions around, okay, how do we engage these young people? I think also what's interesting about the skills bill is that I sort of started on this point to begin with and sort of retracted, but I'll make a full point here. There's a lot of research to suggest that career ideas remain unchanged throughout the course of a young person's schooling. So they pretty much have the same career aspiration and idea at 7 or 17 as they did at age 7. So there's something not happening there. You know, there's work to be done in that space around educating young people about the breadth of opportunity, raising that aspiration that enables them to think, okay, I can step outside of this traditional trajectory, which is painted for me because my family did this and that's all we do and that's all I know. So those are my, you know, immediate thoughts on how I see it from a careers guidance professional.
Thank you. Anybody want to come back or amplify or ask questions of Anthony, please do. As always, it would be helpful. Thank you, Ewan, for demonstrating, for modeling great behavior by using the hand up button. Really appreciate it. It means I don't have to keep scanning the landscape to find out who wants to have a chat. Ewan, please go ahead. Good evening to you.
Yeah, hi there, and hello to Anthony and everyone else, and thanks for the introduction. And I think, I mean, we've talked about this issue previously, but, you know, and it's really interesting to hear you talk about how manufacturing is not even necessarily, you know, as a word or a theme on the radar screen of a number of, you know, teachers, head teachers, schools. And I just happened to be listening to an interview with, I think it was the HR director of Ballygifford, which is a huge, you know, investment management firm. And how do you sort of make, you know, money sort of come to life? And when somebody said, well, what does Ballygifford do? They said, well, we help nurses in New York retire quicker. So, you know, you take a pretty dry subject like money management and they bring it to life. And I just wonder, you know, again, whether there's something that we collectively could be doing to, you know, the ventilator challenge, by way of an example, captured people's attention because, you know, there was an immediate need. There was a group of, you know, people and companies coming together. So, you know, can we be better at framing, you know, what it is that manufacturing stands for? The fact that we're, you know, we collectively help, you know, the communities and help save lives and help support things, you know, at a grassroots level. It's not about, you know, people in suits, you know, trying to make a fast buck. And I think we need to perhaps be better at explaining what it is that manufacturing does in a more tangible and a more sort of down to earth way. And I suppose, so that's a comment, but also, you know, how do you think we could best get that message across? Question to Anthony.
I think that's a really relevant point. I think, you know, if we just forget about the schools for a moment, look at the success of brands in the world of young people. They're, you know, they're relatable. They are the user experience, the design of going onto a new app. You know, it's user friendly, it's easy to access. So I think these are all really important points when thinking about young people and how they're experiencing your brand for the first time, because they're likely to come into contact with you online before they actually meet a representative from the organization. So I think there's a degree of needing to be, you know, it's a PR job really for young people, you know, making sure that you look and you feel like they want to engage. But then, I mean, that's before you've even got into the school. I mean, that's partly why I've created our platform, so that essentially the information that young people see isn't all of your website, it's the careers aspect of the website, so that they just get that insight into that organization rather than having to navigate a website, because all organizations are responding very differently to how they present themselves to young people. Some are doing it really well, some need a bit of support. But I then think, I mean, to just come back to your sort of broader points in your question, when we look at a product, how does a microphone get to your house door? You know, if you've delivered it on Amazon, how does it get there? And I think helping young people to see the journey of the products that they're using or that are affecting their own lives. I mean, the ventilator challenge was a really good example. Being able to then tie that into the need of the curriculum. So is there an opportunity to work closely with the design tech teacher at the school and to say, well, look, you've got this agenda on your curriculum. We commonly have these problems within our own industry. Here's how we can marry the two. Because if you think about a teacher, and some comments coming through in the chat around inspiring teachers, teachers have a very narrow agenda, you know, get them to an exam and get them to, you know, score as highly as possible on those exams. And we know that from talking to employers, they'll often say young people just aren't prepared for the world of work. And, you know, if we look at the model that's emerging from the skills bill, it's very European. You know, the Germans do it very well, the Dutch do it very well. Employer-led curriculum design should be front and center of the future of our education system. So I don't know the demographics of this group very well, but, you know, if you've got a local school, it's not just about phoning them up and saying, can I do a presentation in an assembly? That's the starting point. You know, that's very informational. But to a young person, you've got to help them to touch and feel as much as possible, but also to make that relatability, bring it into their lives as much as possible as well.
Anthony, just on a point of information, as I understand it, the FE white paper, which is obviously the foundation for the skills bill, offers employers a statutory right to get involved in the curricula at college level, but doesn't offer the same facility for schools. Is that correct?
That's the way I've understood it. And in my talk, I'm probably actually leaning more into the schools, because I think that is the gap with the skills bill. It seems to me as if all of this work is going to suddenly happen post 16. At that point, you've only really got the kids, if they're in college, those that are primarily choosing vocational subjects. I think the work needs to be done a lot earlier, because of my earlier point around career aspirations not changing between the ages of 7 and 17. So, you know, I would say that this is it's a step in the right direction, but it's a real concern within the careers profession. Certainly the people that I'm talking to.
Just a point of information. One of the things we're planning, toying is the wrong word, investigating, is asking apprentices across the country through their employers to make their own TikTok style videos about what it's like to be an apprentice. And then we'll host them and then disseminate them. And that's a way perhaps of trying to engage, offer some material. We're just trying to get some material out there that younger people, particularly at school age, they can actually be shown videos of young people who are only a couple of 3 years older than them, having a great time at work. And I'm not quite sure how we're going to do it yet, but it's a great ambition. Russ Coburn, a PR guy in the West Midlands, suggested it, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. So just to let you know, that's one of the things we're planning on doing quite soon. Graham, thank you for using the hand up mechanism of Zoom. Good evening to you.
Good evening. I've spent, as you know, the last three years or so, talking to lots of school kids in careers fairs and in schools as part of the Leeds Manufacturing Festival. And it never fails to amaze me how few of them realise things are actually made. Anthony spoke about something coming from Amazon, but they don't think beyond that. You know, I've spoken to them and said, where do you think your mobile phone came from? Oh, I don't know, Apple shop. You know, they don't think it's made in a factory somewhere. And the way we've found that you can really connect with them is to give them something that attracts attention. So we're really lucky here in Leeds. There's a jukebox manufacturer, one of the few in the world. And these things look marvelous, you know, the old Wurlitzer type things. We get one of those on the stand, and it's like a kid magnet. And they all want to come up and touch it and play with it. And then you can start to engage with them. Where do you think this was made? Oh, America, China. No, it's made in Leeds. And that really stops them in the tracks and it makes them think. But it's a lot of effort to get to that point. You know, it just doesn't come natural. You've got to really get out there. And I think as a group of manufacturers, that's what we need to do. And Angela, God bless her, is trying to trigger off things like this all over the country. So good luck to her.
Yeah, I'm sorry she's not here tonight. She'd love to have been part of this. She's absolutely inspirational. Her devotion to this is fantastic. Barry, do you mind if I put you on the spot just quickly? Because your product is something that young people, obviously at quite an early age, use, but it's manufactured in your factory in Cumbria. Does anybody ever ask you about that? Is this issue of, you know, where's this made ever raised by the people who use
it? Yes and no. We push it. We use that as one of our selling advantages, really. And anyone in the Northwest, we actually bus the schools into our factory to show them around. And where we can't do that, we engage the schools with the installation as well. So we're a construction manufacturer. You know, we manufacture it and then we construct something. So we've got lots of mini high-vis vests that we ship out there, and it's what we do to close a sale, really, and, you know, we're going to educate the children on where the careers could be, etc.
Yeah, I think that's really positive, and I don't know if so many manufacturing and engineering companies in the UK are parts of supply chains. They're not OEMs, and so at the end of the day, it's difficult. I mean, is Lee with us? Yeah, evening, Lee. I mean, you guys work at MC&C. You work for some really top-notch companies making your product. But I mean, would it be easy for you to explain to young people what you do in that sort of broad sense that Ewan was suggesting?
No, it's not easy, because a mobile phone, like everybody was suggesting, they just see the Amazon stage. So I, inspired by Angela Lawler and the likes of Graham and other advocates of UK manufacturing that recognize that we do make fantastic stuff. And Anthony, there is a skills gap, and it's all about inspiring everything. Now, the problem we have is I've signed then non-disclosure agreements. Now, I could potentially show you photographs of jet engine parts, race engine parts, you bloody name it, I could show you it. Missile launchers, components, rotary units for Type 26 and Type 31 frigates. It's unbelievable what we actually produce. Now, I've had the point is, Anthony, is that when I was an apprentice engineer, sorry, I would not use that word, tool maker. Engineers, tool makers, machinists, whether you were a turner or a miller, a pattern maker, a foundry worker, a welder, was respected. then became a service nation, and all our manufacturing was exported. And I can remember, I'm from Swindon, massive railway heritage. The railway works closed, huge tool making area. When I was an apprentice, there were 21 tool making companies. There are now approximately 4 or 5 in the town. There are other machining companies, but I mean tool making. Now, it's all about getting kids to relate. I'm a left-handed, dyslexic, calculator, weird bloke that likes understanding how things work. Now, when I was at school and they're teaching me trigonometry, it went in one ear and out the other. I got a Saturday morning job sweeping the floor, and then I got offered an apprenticeship because I was keen, eager, and willing. And it wasn't until a skilled person explained that this arm needs to rotate through 110 degrees and lock in this position. So we're going to put a dowel pin in there and lock it in there. But we don't know where that is. So we use a series of triangles to work out the XY coordinate. And then, if you can apply some knowledge and understanding to something physical, people that aren't your bankers, your doctors, your solicitors, and all the academics that need amazing education, you get, how can I put this? You get cack-handed guys like me that are not stupid, but we're not academics either. And what we are trying to do in our local area, because there's a huge skills shortage and we're just poaching each other's talent. And the way we've got to start at the source, and we recognize that back in 2017, and we started an apprenticeship program. But trying to get young kids to just even consider manufacturing is really, really difficult. So being inspired by Angela and the Leeds Manufacturing Festival, a press release will be announced, and you're free to speak about it. We are going to be holding Somerset Festival of Advanced Manufacturing. I've engaged with 4 technical colleges that are on board, and I've engaged with the Somerset Education Business Partnership. They are liaising with secondary schools, and the message has gone out, and I've already had 3 responses from career teachers back already, which is fantastic. But we have basically a rectangular shaped factory. Now, my plan is to get our suppliers and partners to come along with a little pop-up banner and a sample of their wares. So when children do come along, outside, I've got customers that are going to be loaning me jet-powered surfboards, parasail jetbacks, Tonic IQ, hill climb sports cars. I've got an introduction to the CEO of Aerial. So I'm hoping to have an Aerial Atom there. You hit the nail on the head. Kids will walk past and we can then say, come in. What do you want to do within manufacturing? Do you want to be a designer? So we'll have software companies there with CAD/CAM technology. We're going to have metrology suppliers there showing latest digital scanners. We're going to have machine tool companies there showing the latest in digital industry 4.0 technology that we use. So, because if I was just to show a child around my factory, all they're going to see is a big box covered in lots of white water flying everywhere and a computer screen with numbers flashing by quicker than you can read them. But if we can say, hey, to design this phone, we've got a visual creative person. So you could be in manufacturing there and come up with a concept. You then go to a design engineer with that concept, who then builds a CAD/CAM model. You then give it to a manufacturing company that translates that CAD/CAM into code. You then put that code into a machine. But it's not as simple as that. You have to consider strategies, work holding, tooling, cutting fluids, metrology. You have to measure it. How are you going to measure it? So we're going to have all these examples of the different fields within manufacturing. So, and to get kids engaged, I engaged with the company via Southwest Manufacturing Advisory Service because I was interested in STEM, which is very difficult because nobody can get teachers to fully buy into it because it's manufacturing, engineering. People use the word engineering. It's a dirty, oily, shitty word that nobody likes to hear anymore. And it's undervalued. It is so undervalued. So that's why I've called ours advanced manufacturing, to make it more appealing. And I didn't use the word sexy there, Nick, and kids in the same sentence. So thank you for that. And the idea is that you might not want to be a machinist, but you might want to be a designer. You might start as a machinist, like I did, as a skilled toolmaker, and then become a salesperson. And then you go out into the world and you see different things, and you can use your knowledge to solve solutions and provide solutions to solve people's problems. You can then become an international manager. You can then be made an MD. You can then be made a CEO. So this fantastic idea I've got, sorry, not mine. Forgive me, I've forgotten the lady's name. I will share it as soon as I remember. She's come up with the idea of trump cards. So you remember when I was a kid, you had top trumps. This car goes this fast, but my car goes faster, so you share the cards. Well, it's apprentice machinist, £150 to £200 a week. What skills do you need? Maths, English, possibly science. Boom. Next one, skilled machinist, 22 to 40k a year. Project manager, 35 to 50k a year. And as soon as they start seeing those salary figures, they're gonna, oh wow, I can earn that much. Sales director, 80k plus commission, endless, millions. It's trying to get kids to know that there are more than one path. I've noticed we've got Philip Anthony on here as well. He's a fellow colleague in the world of awesome UK manufacturing and CNC machining. He was an apprentice. He's now a business development director. He started somewhere. And forgive me, and Phil, I don't know your true background, but I'm pretty convinced you're like me. You've just worked your nuts off, and you love engineering, and you're a little bit weird and a little bit geeky. And wow, how is that made? Look at that, it's flying. You look at Vertical Aerospace in Bristol, making virtually flying cars for urban air mobility. You've got Gilo Industries making jet-powered surfboards, flying motorbikes, parasail backpacks. We've got Mulberry in Somerset making and producing fantastic high quality leather goods, handbags, belts, etc. We've got Thatcher's cider, brilliant. And there's loads of other manufacturing. It doesn't have to be about oil. We make everything in this country, from artist charcoal that use robots to select the different grades and thicknesses, so they can separate the charcoal from a wood burner of the willow and grade the charcoal for artists. So if you're an artist, you can be involved in manufacturing. We make guitars, drums, pianos, harps, digital synthesizers. You could be into musician, then you're never ever going to be in the top hit parade, but you could be inspired by that. There's so much that's going on around manufacturing, and the possibilities are endless. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now, because otherwise I'll keep going.
Lee, you are wonderful. Paul, it's interesting that you're waving, because I
want
to come to you and ask you about this design element, because what you have done all your life, it's so exciting.
Well, I mean, what Lee's talking about is amazing, and the UK's ability.
Excuse me, Paul, you're on my list to invite, so I'll be.
All right, no, but
soon.
look, I agree absolutely with what you're saying. There are some amazing things in the UK. Unfortunately, I trained as a woodwork teacher at Loughborough, and I hated teaching. My dad was a woodwork teacher, and I did woodwork and metalwork, and I failed my 11 plus because I'm dyslexic as well, left-handed. And I think the thing that the bottom-up side that you're talking about there is amazing. The top-down side from government, and that's why I think we've got to just step back a little bit, is English and maths and the sciences are all those things that's rammed down kids' throats and parents' throats about what you need to be successful going forwards. what's fascinating when you go around a school is they've still got the art up, and they've still got some bits of science up, and they've got some DT projects there now, which is moved on. But actually, the government needs to take very seriously design technology. And you were talking about the notion of science and physics and engineering. It needs some joined up thinking from the top down. What you're talking about is bottom up, people who strove and striven to build businesses. I mean, I've worked with Nick and gone round, and we've seen some amazing businesses on our travels as judges. But the kids in school, and I've got a daughter who's a teacher now, design technology and is one of those subjects that is very low on the curriculum. And I think it just needs to be reimagined and, as you said, rebranded, because and coupled with art and coupled with physics and coupled with some of the chemistry. So it becomes an exciting making subject, but at the moment it is relegated to something that very few schools take as a serious careers choice. So whilst you're talking about inspiring children, I think we've got to go back a step to first principles, and we've got to inspire teachers, headmasters, and beyond that, government to actually want to make a difference in the schools. Because at the moment, design technology, as far as I can see, has been relegated to a subject that children may or may not want to do, but it's not on the core curriculum anymore. Am I missing something here?
No, it's a phrase that came to my mind while you were saying that was be wonderful to start a subject, a manufacturing studies or something like that, but that encompasses a lot. Lisa makes a very good point in the chat box that was made to me in my I think it was the first event I ever went to after I joined the manufacturer. We're talking 5 years ago now. And this fellow was talking about Garth, I've forgotten his name, beg his pardon. He was talking about getting degrees in manufacturing that anybody could take later in life. It's part of lifelong learning, career change, and so on. And he was saying that there are so many jobs in manufacturing that are not necessarily of a direct engineering or technical nature, but that, as Lisa suggested, are of support functions, anything from HR through to finance, through to procurement, you name it. And he was saying that wouldn't it be great if people, for instance, who are laid off either from or retire from the armed services, or whose career has taken a necessary change because they're in an old industry and jobs are going, they can retrain into and become part of the manufacturing sector. But it doesn't have to be in a directly technical role. There are so many other roles out there for people to get involved in.
Well, no, I was picking up on the point of schools and careers advice, because if so I could be quite, I mean, when I was at school, and it's quite a while ago now, but I mean, if the bright ones went to be doctors, and there's lawyers, and there's a traditional kind of path there. And then a lot of others who weren't so bright didn't go to university, went into apprenticeship. But it was always the kids who can't do stuff did woodwork and metalwork and art and those subjects. And it was very much, it was a very, I guess, a hammer looking for a nail solution. Now that there's so much more rich tapestry of career opportunities, and you're right, there's all sorts of areas around the manufacturing, the selling, the marketing, the digital, there's a whole raft of coordinated services that, and new careers, and there's more new careers coming by the day. But the teachers, they are very much on the coalface and delivering curriculums that are very, very narrow. And I guess the thing is we have to look at educating the teachers in order to bring these to bring the children forward. And yes, there are different stages, because from 5 to 10 to 12 to 15 to as you progress through school. So I think it does need joined up thinking about what the educators are going to be teaching the children about, how things are made, as you were describing, how things are sold, how things get through. But at the moment, I think, the English and the maths and the sciences take absolute priority to any of the, the creative subjects are always, it's great to hear them talked about, and they're always shown at open days in schools, but the reality is, in terms of curricula, they are low on the level of priorities, or that's my experience.
Anthony, obviously this is very much your area of expertise. How receptive are schools to embracing a broader view of what the curriculum should look like? Do they resist at all?
Well, it is different with each school. It really depends on the culture of the school, the makeup of the staff, desirability. I think for a large part, those early adopting schools have sort of just taken it and said, yeah, we need to do this. And the laggards are slowly catching up, so to speak. But I think across all of the schools, the question remains how? How do they do this? And I think we're kind of touching on a lot. There's so many interesting points that are coming out of everybody here. So I'm actually going to rewatch this in my spare time. So I think for a lot of schools it is that how piece. But I mean, Nick, you made an interesting comment about TikToks. Why not put it in the hands of young people to promote the sector, the apprentices? They tell the best stories. I mean, I'm not often on social media, but there is a particular profile that I follow, because she makes working in Tesco glamorous. It is just so engaging, 30 seconds, here's my day at Tesco. I mean, that's her side gig while she's trying to get into musical theatre, but it's educative. And I think, the challenge that manufacturing faces and engineering is that they're already perceived as kind of dirty occupations where you've got to get your hands dirty, and there's so many misconceptions both at the student level and the school level that perhaps it is time to do something like a visual campaign that's led by students, that is content that inspires the students, and that way, if you inspire the students, you would hope that it would infect their, sometimes what I've noticed is that it's not schools that are drawing the line for students. It's sometimes the students are telling the schools, actually, look at this. And at least with something like TikTok, you've got the power is in your hands. You're responsible for the content creation. You've just got to make sure it's slick enough that it engages young people.
Another question to you, Anthony. David Cameron, I'm so pleased to see he's in hot water at the moment, because I'm so annoyed with him for lots of reasons. One of them was cancelling the careers advisory service and basically putting it all back onto the schools. And I've been in schools and working with careers teachers, and there's sort of a large amount of panic behind their eyes, because not a lot of them actually know what's really going on in the real world. So would it be, number one, is it now a statutory requirement for schools to provide careers advice? Is that statutory, or is it just, get on with it? Secondly, do careers teachers have to undergo any kind of formal training in order to do their job properly?
Interestingly, it has become a requirement for the schools to provide. So, but the data would indicate that only 40% of schools are actually providing the level of careers guidance that's needed. So a young person in year 11 might get 30 minutes with a careers professional in their year. 30 minutes isn't long. We've moved, I think, it's fair to say the profession is moving away from this, I'm going to tell you what to do, to let's have a conversation of where you're at and are you heading in the right direction? Thus meaning that everything that's being done at the curriculum level is driving those thoughts around what it is that I should be. And the careers advisor is just there to say, well, look, they've seen a careers advisor, they've told them what they're up to, let's tick that box. The formal training is interesting. So, 10 years ago when I qualified, I did a postgraduate diploma in careers, and this was before they dismantled the careers service, which was then called Connections. So it's a level 7 qualification. It's considered at the equal weight of a teacher. However, since 2015-16, the rise of the careers leader, so that would be a nominated senior leader within your school that's responsible for driving the careers program. Sometimes in schools, you see the lines blurring where the careers leader has got involved with the delivery of careers advice, trained, or for most schools, untrained. And you start to see some really bad examples of careers advice that's being thrown around. This is live and recorded. I mean, God forbid, but I see some really silly questions from careers leaders that are asking really basic things, and it's a real insight into where they're at in their professional journeys. There's a whole demographic of careers advisors. I'm a bit of an anomaly within the careers advisory world because I'm male and I'm under 40. So, where's that professional body that should be there to support? If you look at it, I mean, professional careers advisors, they're probably turning out about 200 newly trained careers advisors a year. That is at the level 7. So there's been a kind of professional identity crisis within that pool of people. Lots of people have moved away from the profession and they've found themselves in new, different roles. So even that profession needs a bit of a sort of revolution to sort of kickstart that profession. I think it's difficult for them to relay. So some of the learning that I found today, I'm sitting here thinking, wow, I've got to do a presentation in a school in September on careers, and one of the growth areas in the Midlands being engineering and manufacturing. Hence why I'll come back and consult this resource, because it's been a really insight to see some of the broader stuff. So even in my own mind, I'm thinking there's so much more that I've got to take on to then relay that on to students. Now, are the careers professionals getting the CPD that they need? I'd probably argue not, because all they need to do is turn up, do 8 appointments across a day, and verify that the student is on the right path to having a decision to then move from school leaving age at 16 or 18 into their next destination. That's the only thing that's going on. There's no room for let's explore career ideas. Can I introduce manufacturing? I mean, if you're lucky, they might say, oh, there's a factory down the road that have got opportunities. Have a look at this link here. There's no follow-up. So how can you expect a young person to go and engage with that information, with what they currently know and how they engage with the world? The skills bill focusing on sort of the post-school years, 16 and above. You've then got the National Careers Service, which that's a website. So NCS, National Careers Service, you can go anywhere and look at it. It's not going to do the job of promoting manufacturing. I mean, it might have a profile on what manufacturing is and what it does, but it's a very uninspiring website. And again, for somebody who's below the age of 24, they're not exactly going to walk away from that website thinking, yeah, manufacturing's for me. So
Anthony, can I pick you up on something? Bob mentioned, he said it's not just about school, of course. Many young people go to FE college, where I suspect they're already sort of toe in water on a career path. But do careers advisors have any role at FE level, or is that regarded as too late?
So the requirement gets patchier as you go into the FE colleges. I mean, most FE colleges will have a careers advisor in post, but they're not doing anything developmental with the students. They are, I spoke to one careers advisor in Bristol College. She's responsible for 12,000 students. When you actually look at her agenda, she's focusing on those that are at most risk. So, for those that can and that are capable, they're left to their own devices on the internet or their own network, their parents or other people, to then go away and form those career ideas. So at the college level, it's really patchy. You'll have a careers advisor, maybe a couple, but you won't have the developmental work that I think if you were to want to work with an FE college, your best route is to talk to somebody from a curriculum area and say, look, we'd love to come in and present to your students on careers in manufacturing. That's your best route into a college.
I think that I know we've spoken a lot about a lot of the subjects tonight at previous meetings, but I think it's the first time I've really thought through that the missing glue in all this probably is qualified careers advisors at all levels that have, are professional and are right there on the ground. I don't know what anybody else thinks. I mean, I just think that could, if you had qualified careers advisors, then a lot of the issues we've discussed would go away if they were doing their job properly, of course. But if their own training curriculum was geared very much towards the broad range of opportunities available, from the NHS right the way through to working for Lee Howarth at MCNC, then I just think that, as I say, an awful lot of these issues would probably go away. Does anybody agree with me, or am I being fanciful?
I agree with you.
Well, I rather thought you would.
One of the things that I've seen that work really well is when a employer, a business or a college sends the resource into a school because the school doesn't have it. So, there's a group of colleges that I know, they will send careers advisors in. Now, the careers advisor is pitched as an independent, impartial professional, but at some level, they're having some knock-on effect. They're developing that relationship with the school. They are referencing points around those destinations at that college. Maybe there's scope for, the manufacturing community to do the same with the schools and say, look, we want to come in and work with your students. Here are some people that can give, for the schools, they would need to have a qualified impartial careers advisor. If you know one, get hold of one. But for you guys to go in and, for example, I sit on a careers IAG board with a school. I'm obviously not promoting a sector, but I'm having a knock-on effect down the line. They'll elicit me for further services and further work. In fact, they're the ones that have asked me to do a school assembly on engineering and manufacturing in September. So I'll definitely be coming to the group again to ask you for your input and maybe get one or two of you in to come and contribute to that.
Final thought, Anthony, sorry, because I'm keen to get to Ewan, but I just want to ask a quick question. Would it make sense for the people who train careers advisors, do they have a broad view of what's going on in manufacturing? I mean, I'm just wondering, if you're going back to the roots of the issue, the people who train careers advisors are the ones who should have the broadest possible view of what's available across all sectors, and that of course includes engineering and manufacturing? Do you know the answer to that?
Yeah, I mean, there are training providers. There's the Professional Body for Careers Advisors, the CDI it's called. I mentor some of the students that are on that program now, and not a massive amount has changed since I did the course. And I've always fed back that labour market information in real time needs to be apparent, but what you're taught as a careers professional is how to access that information and understand it yourself. But the problem is there's always a lag. I think that there's work to be done at that level. I mean, I could definitely introduce you to some people that, you could do an industry awareness webinar for careers advisors and get as many as possible online rather than having them to consult services in their own spare time. There's definitely an opportunity there. But I think also one of the things that I see work really well in other sectors is that continual CPD for them, the careers advisors, a program, lay it out once a term. You invite them to either a face-to-face event held in a convenient location or an online event, which is educative on the sector. It's informative, but it also includes opportunities and pathways. Somebody's mentioned food in here earlier. I used to work at a horticultural college, and for me, I really struggled with the delivery of careers in that environment. What changed it for me, we had somebody come in from, I think it was Dairy Crest. They came in and said, look, these are the opportunities that we've got available. Once we put those in front of students, the attitude towards careers changed. And I think that's a big part of it, because if I'm going to learn all of this stuff about manufacturing, I want to know that there are opportunities that exist. Because even in my mind's eye, if I look back over the last 20 years, it feels, or it's felt from a PR point of view, that manufacturing was an industry that perhaps there wasn't any opportunity in there at all. So if young people are carrying those myths, they've got to know that if I'm going to invest in learning this, then I need to know that there's something in it for me at the end. And if it's a well-paid job, then you've got them hooked in.
Okay, top trumps it's going to be. Ewan, potentially the last contribution of the evening.
No, I was just going to say, look, I think, qualified and numerous qualified career advisors is definitely the BHAG, but the stepping stone is, all of us, we're passionate about manufacturing. All of us have been involved with businesses, have businesses, which we keep talking about, the skills shortage. So Anthony, if you're banging the drum out there and saying, well, is it worth the effort, to try and get people interested in manufacturing? I think categorically we can say yes. And, we might not be qualified careers advisors, but we do know a thing or two about working in different industries with different skill sets. So, we'll be biased careers advisors to start with, because we're the best, evangelical sort of salespeople when it comes to talking about the opportunities in manufacturing and the opportunities for UK PLC full stop. So, that might be let's say, a little stepping stone, because you've got a target audience of people who are certainly willing to go into schools, and have gone into schools and higher educational establishments in order to try and bang the drum.
Okay, folks. Well, listen, Anthony, I cannot thank you enough for coming in and giving us such. I've found some of those insights as interesting as some of them were terrifying. And I hope you got a lot out of it from the sound of it. I think that you did. And listen, you can come back anytime. I mean, this is open door. This is I'll show you how to that link you've got. You can use it time and time again. We're always here, aren't we? Thursdays, 6 p.m. Yeah, you get less for murder. We're here for life. But I'm really looking forward to speaking with Richard and Alison on Monday to talk about the great success Richard Hagan has had with Alison's virtual interns program. I'm talking to James Emmett tomorrow. Don't know where he is in the States. I think he's in Chicago, but about the training to get people with disabilities, obvious and hidden, into manufacturing and other sectors. I'm really looking forward to that. So Alison, I got your name right at last, and Bob, you are hereby castigated for having raised the issue in the chat box. I'm not sure I will ever speak to you ever again. Listen, of course I will. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Love you as always. You take care, and see you next time.
Thanks. Bye-bye.